No one makes magic in business like Disney. Join us as we hear from Disney cast members, influencers, and enthusiasts to uncover the secrets of what it takes behind the scenes to make Disney such a successful and well-loved brand. We will hear their journeys, inspirations, and have some good old-fashioned Disney fun along the way. So relax, pull up a chair, be our guest, and let's get down to bibbidi bobbidi business. Hello, and welcome to a magical Thursday where we do another bibbidi bobbidi business. Welcome, Lauren. How are you doing today?
I am so great, Rita. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. I have confetti playing on the
Oh my
screen to
gosh, this is
welcome
the
you
cutest.
here. So, for anyone who is listening and wondering who is Lauren, what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about SEO tips for podcasts and you really utilizing storytelling content strategy in a way that aligns with not only great stories but also SEO as well too. So, if anyone was wondering why the heck is this on Bippity Boppity Business, it just so happens that Lauren and I are huge Disney fans as well too, right, Lauren?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I got Rebel Alliance
Right.
here. Yeah,
Yes.
we're all in.
We're all in. So before we get into the business side of the Bippity Boppity, let's just chit chat about some Disney stuff. So
Okay, if we have to.
if we have to. So for me, I would love to know for what is one part of Disney from like as an adult that you really admire when it comes to like movies and stuff? Like what looking back like now, if you were to think, hey, what kind of movie or brand or whatever it is, like what part of their model now do you go like, dang, like this is really awesome and I have a newfound love or perspective for it compared to maybe when you were just a kid and you like Disney?
Gosh. Oh, it's such a great question. I think honestly, it is the fact that story is so interwoven into everything they do. And it's not just that they do it, it's what it does for us as those who experience it and who we experience it with. So, oh my God, I'm going to start crying. Taking my
Oh.
kids down Main Street. Like, I remember being a kid going down Main Street, and I now get to share my love of place with them in a way that I get to play all day with them. Like there are very few sacred spaces like that in our world. I feel very lucky to live in the Pacific Northwest. We have, I think, a higher volume here, like lots
Mhm.
of forests, lots of like, oh, look, a fairy ring. Like
Mhm.
we do have those magical moments in nature here. But it ties me to my children. It ties me back to my parents and the experiences they crafted for me by going to Disney. And at home, we can sit on a couch and watch a movie and feel that thread, even though we are very distant from the parks. So, when my kids, ask for Disney songs in the car, like I am the parent who's like, great, sing along time. Like, here
Yes.
we go. They know my favorite songs. I know their favorite songs. Like, it's just this bonding that
Mm.
Disney provides the canvas for us to like paint our own stories onto, and the canvas
Mhm.
they provide are stories that we connect to. So it's this like beautiful connection all around.
Well, that's so beautiful because I feel the same way, and I feel that because they have you said something interesting, there's a place, right? Like, as
Yeah.
humans, we like to associate our thoughts and feelings with locations, our
Mhm.
memories, and all of that, and,
Smells,
smells, like, all
pirate
the
water.
senses pirate water, right? You can view that and feel fond and sentimental about it,
Yeah.
for what it is, but also from a business aspect, isn't it amazing
Mm.
that they're able to take those stories and have people from different parts of the world feel connected and bonded? It's honestly, it's community building
Mhm.
before community building was even called community building, right?
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Like, you can look at another Disney person, like, driving, and I see a Disney pass holder magnet on a car and go, "We know each other. I get you. I
Tribe
know what."
member.
Right, tribe member, right? What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
I love it. Where my head went was the cynics who are
Mm.
like, Disney's commoditizing off of
Yeah.
our feels. And like, yeah, it's a business, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, they're running, especially in Disney World, a
Mhm.
city. Like, there are very real considerations for how the trash goes out of the city. Like, where does it go?
Right.
There's safety concerns. There's so many different angles that you have to think about it. And sometimes Disney has to make business decisions that don't like pluck at our heartstrings because
Right.
at the end of the day, it is a business. And I think there's a way to hold both of those threads and say, like, yes, I keep coming back because I love it. Um, and they are raising prices because the cost of everything has gone up. I can understand that. And then I can choose as a fan what to do with that information, whether
Mhm.
I go less or I choose to travel differently or I engage less because, oh my God, Disney Plus is just like overwhelming.
They
Like,
got so much content on there now. I don't even know what to expect.
I refuse to go to Marvel Universe. Like, I already have my degree.
It's too
Like,
much.
I enjoyed it when it was like, here's a movie every 6 months. Now I'm just
Right.
like, I'm out. Like,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
my choice to
Yeah.
make.
Yeah.
Godspeed, y'all. Like, if
Yeah.
you wanna study at the altar of Thor, by
Oh
all
my
means.
gosh, that's
But,
so
like,
funny.
I think people get so wound up about it, especially when they really love it. They like love it, but they like also want to have control. And it's like, well, you can't have that. So,
Right.
it's how we express our fandom and how the business like conducts itself. Like you do sometimes have to wrestle with like where do we stand today? Like,
Mhm.
but
Right, you're right. But at the end of
that
the day,
said,
at its core,
oh,
the
beautiful.
fundamentals are still there, right? There's
Yeah.
the and it's all wound through story. And that's why I
Yes.
really and you're, a or organic content strategist. And this is why I'm so passionate about podcasting is because it
Yes.
really is all storytelling, right? So
Mhm.
before we get into more of that, tell us more for about who you are. We've been talking like we're best friends, and our listeners are probably like, "Who are they? Like, who? What?" And why things like storytelling, SEO, a little bit of Disneyisms, like why they're so relevant and important to you and what you've done in your career.
Yeah. So I think, I'm a fan of Walt, and
Mm.
I think that that comes from like my own sort of origin story, if you will,
Yes.
of entrepreneurship. Like when you look back and you go, "Oh, well, of course she's supposed to own her own business." I was the kid who had like Kids Corner Cafe, all K's, like, branded, and we
Yes.
served popcorn soup, and, like, I made the soup, and then I made the menu, and then, like, I set the table and, like, forced people to sit down and eat this really awful soup that featured every single spice in my mother's kitchen cabinet. Like, I was that kid, but I also, like, had this artistic bent. So I was in theater, and so I think that too, again, connected me to Disney in a very, like, viable way, like,
Mhm.
growing up and, like, practicing the songs to go sing at auditions and things like that. Um, and so I went the acting route and, like, I auditioned for Disney Cruise Line at one point. I did not make it.
We're
But
so similar in that way. I was a former theater kid too.
oh, yeah,
I think I auditioned for America Pavilion, Epcot, or whatever.
nice.
Girl, I did not get it. Okay, listen, there's
Right.
but that's so cool. Yeah, I love that.
Well, and I think a lot of us, like, we could see that there's, like, this outlet for performance, but, like,
Right,
adults are doing it. It was
right.
great. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up in Orange County, so I used to see Eden Espinoza when she was doing, like, Five and Dime at DCA.
Yes.
It was awesome. Like, you have
Right.
these, like, world-class performers who are now, like, getting Tony nods, like,
How
this season,
how did
you
all of
know?
us former theater kids end up in marketing though? How do you think we all ended up here?
I think we are Swiss Army knives, and we rise to the challenge. We are yes and people.
Yes.
And that's really like that's the spirit of Disney, right? And I think it's the spirit
Mhm.
of entrepreneurship too. I think it's embedded in the culture there, historically at least, and I feel like that's been just such a guiding light in my exploration of business ownership. So when I was in LA pursuing acting, I needed a gig that did not take up normal business hours. And when I was not hired to do DCL, I went ahead and started tutoring the ACT and SAT because that's clearly the alternative,
Clearly.
the only
The
alternative.
only one,
This
apparently.
is the only one. And so I started tutoring for one of the large companies, realized my kids' performance was outpacing others in terms of improvement, whether they were a kid who didn't understand the test at all, were really, really good and just wanted to refine, or somewhere in the middle. I was really able to treat each student as an individual and help them get their best results, whatever
Mhm.
that was. And so I realized I could do that better on my own. I was like driving tons of business for them through referrals, and went, well, wait a minute, you're paying me a pittance based on what against what you're charging for me, and
Right.
I keep bringing you the clients. So
Monies.
um
She's bringing the
I left.
monies.
Yeah. And I was like, I could do this. Like, so I left and started doing it on my own, and found I really loved business. Like, I
Mhm.
love, getting to know people, getting to understand the challenges they face. And in the same way that I was helping students with that, I was also learning clients, more broadly with that, and that sort of individualistic approach, which again, I think is something Disney does really well. They
Yes.
see the individual guest when they're in the parks. And so I think, um, after I did that for a while and drove like 11,000 miles in 6 months, going out and seeing students, I was like, I am tired. And so
Yeah.
I went online and I went into digital entrepreneurship. And what I really loved about that was low overhead, high profit margins, and still the ability to meet individuals where they were, give them a discount because of how I was serving them, but still get to help. And I love helping. Like, I love helping people solve the problems that they're facing. And so, I've just continued in that vein. I grew and then sold that company in 2021. Had like a fallow season. I just kind of stepped back
Right.
and tried to back solve for some of the ease that I had found in my business, and really came up with the fact that Uncle Google had my back. He
Yeah.
was driving 16,000 new users to my site per month for 2 full years. So I was able to have my babies, look in their eyes, work the 4-hour work week, and make a revenue. And so, had a kid, moved from Orange County to Seattle, and then had another baby, survived a pandemic, and now I'm here helping people figure out how to become good friends with Google such that they can still keep their creative spark alive and
Mhm.
still deliver the content they want to deliver, but make sure it can be found by the person they're trying to serve when that person goes to Google and says, "Please help me. I need
Right.
something."
Because
So,
but that's so important, like, going back to you growing, you
yeah,
feel that that was attributed to the Google, SEO stuff that you've done, right? So, talk
absolutely.
to me about what that was, like, blogs or ads or whatever, just, like, break it down a little bit for me what you think it was.
So I have I with higher scores, I did dabble in some paid ads,
Mhm.
but primarily it was organic search
Mhm.
that served me. So organic search just means when somebody types a query into Google, you show up in the search engine results pages. This is a free thing that you can do for your business. And so it does take time to get into the SERPs, into the search engine results pages. But once you flip that switch, once you show Google who you are, how you help, who you serve, then he's able to, when somebody with a question that's relevant to what you do, can provide you as the answer. So Google's a matchmaker. That's all he does all day long, is say, I have these pre-vetted websites. When somebody asks this query, I will serve up this website, and
Mhm.
here's the rankings. And that's really the easiest way to understand it. And people think it's like this really complex thing. I will tell you, I did everything wrong and I still was able to get found. And when you have all the pieces working together, this is how you build your email list. This is how
Mhm.
you take next right steps to bringing someone in as a client. And it all starts, though, with getting that inbound lead, that warm inbound lead. Because when people type a query into Google, they are asking a question about a problem they know they have
Right.
and they are ready to solve. And in terms of the buyer's journey, like that is when you, as somebody who provides a solution to a problem, which as entrepreneurs we all do, that is right when you are in the perfect position to make your case,
Mm-hmm.
right? As to why you should be the person to serve them. And so, if we come at it through a heart centered lens, if we share our stories, if we are able to meet people and resonate with them right when they need us, we never have to hear the worst sentence that any entrepreneur has ever heard, which is, oh, you do that? Oh, I totally could have used you like a year ago.
Oh, yes.
Like you just die. You're like, I was
Right.
over here yelling this way. You were over here looking this way. If only we could have just like turned towards one another and met one another eye to eye. It's like Cinderella and Prince Charming, right?
Right.
Like,
Right. Before you know it, that lead turned into a pumpkin and you lost that.
right?
That's so funny. Well, tell me more about, okay, so you're saying that it's this combination of knowing what your ideal client or buyer is searching and also creating the content that's compelling enough for them to actually want to stay on the page rather than click away, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
tell me then, how are you searching? How are you getting in the head of that buyer to find what is the SEO part, which is
Yeah.
answering those questions that they have?
So nobody wants to hear me say what I am about to say, but I assure you it is not as scary a process as it sounds. Keyword research,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you've ever felt like you've been screaming into the void, like for me with a test prep company, I used to post on Facebook. And I'd be like, I am so passionate about SAT and ACT. I love it. Right. And I
Right.
realized I'm selling broccoli when like everyone around me has like candy, like popcorn, and
Yes.
like, yeah, come eat my broccoli. Nobody
Yeah.
wants that. Like, nobody wants that right then. And
Mm.
so I realized I was like, this is not the place to meet these people. I know the people who I need to meet do play here, but they're here to play and they don't want the broccoli. So where do they
Mhm.
go when they want the broccoli? They go to Google and they search. Okay, what do they search? And so this is sort of where our own knowledge of our ideal avatar, right? This is where avatar work is super helpful. Who's the specific person you're serving?
Mhm.
What questions do they ask right before they need you? All right. So, kind of going backwards and like unpacking, like, what is it that leads them to my doorstep? And so, there's sort of two pieces to that. There's the questions before they know there's a solution, right? That, like, for example, what is organic marketing? That's a question somebody asks before they know they need a course about SEO, right?
Mhm.
If I try to push a course about SEO to that person, they're going to be like, wait, but I need to know what organic marketing is. Or somebody searching organic marketing course. Right now, that's somebody who has a credit card in hand because courses cost money and saying, oh, I know that I need this. And now I'm trying to figure out which one to buy. That's a
Mhm.
transactional query. So our sales pages can be SEO optimized. And our blog posts, which by the way, blogging is not dead, it never died. We can just now call them articles if you
Yes.
like. We'll update it. But you address these two types of queries in different ways. But before you can address them, you need to know the language people are using, and that is keyword research.
Mhm.
And so there are free tools out there that you can use. My very favorite one just completely gutted their free version, which
Mm.
is like so sad to me. You can still get some data. So it's Ahrefs, their keyword generator. So Ahrefs keyword generator. That'll give you some general sense of how hard it is to rank for a keyword and how many searches a month are happening in Google.
Mhm.
So go and look at the exact language that's being used, and you might find some surprising stuff there. So, like, I had a friend who went through my course and he was like, Lauren, I have been saying recurring income for so long. I just say recurring income. And he's like, do you know how many people search for recurring income? Like none.
No
He's
way.
like, everybody wants recurring revenue. And so
Mm.
just by shifting his language, he might not rank for that term, but now he's more linguistically endeared to the person across the screen from him. And he can use the language they're using. And it's that like mirroring effect of like, hey, I see you. I see the terms you use. And I can reflect that back to you so that we sort of free ourselves from the curse of knowledge if we do the keyword research right. And it's all led through our creative side and our knowledge of our ideal client that informs what we search first. But it's like mining. Like as you go down, sometimes you hit that vein of gold and you got to go that way.
Right.
So sometimes it's not exactly what you thought, but you have to keep plumbing the depths and suddenly you will find that vein of gold and you'll be like, this is what they've been saying. This is why they don't resonate with my terms.
Right.
And you'll figure it out and be able to write content to meet that person.
I think also an a non like standard way to do some research to figure out what people are saying in addition to all those tools. I think having a podcast is really awesome if you're
Mm,
just like talking to somebody and asking them like a question and maybe they phrase it differently than you thought you would, and you can start like kind of pinning down like, okay, like people talk use these terms in this niche or in this space or
yes.
whatever. What do you think about that?
I love that to then inform the data
Right.
search, right? So another tool that I'm toying with, there's a 10-day free trial. It's called Mangools. I benchmarked it against the Ahrefs data because I use the paid version of
Mhm.
Ahrefs, but it's $100 a month
Right.
if you want the more granular data. Mangools has a 10-day free trial and then it's $17 a month. They do cap how many searches you can do, but it's a good starting point. Um, they when you hear language, like my first stop now is always to go and be like, is that what people are saying? And you can see, you can be like, 10 people a month search this,
Mm,
10,000 people a month search this alternative. Well, hello, like unless if the keyword difficulty is equivalent, then obviously one is better than the other.
right.
And keyword difficulty is actually the more important benchmark.
Hmm.
Because I think what people need to remember is that to get on the playing field, you have got to start to rank. And so you want the lowest possible keyword difficulty. I usually say with a Ahrefs old style, and I have to figure out where the tipping point is for Mangools and these others, it's higher. But with Ahrefs, I would always say you should be going for single digits, right?
Mm,
Digit difficulty, because I would rather get on the board with 80 searches a month and be one of the top folks who is recommended for that search, then be on the 100th page,
right.
for something that has a million searches. Because the best place to bury a dead body on Google is the second page of search results.
So true.
Nobody goes there.
Right.
So getting in the top 10 is the name of the game. Top 3 is ideal, but it's an aggregate. Like once you start to climb and once you see like, oh, this post is getting this many hits and this one's getting this many hits, becomes about the whole picture and how everything connects. And so, but the way you start that, it's kind of like the Dave Ramsey debt snowball. Start
Mm.
small, right? You can go after some of those bigger ones, but make sure you have some really easy winners in the mix.
That's so relevant to think about because I think when people start thinking about SEO, they go to these sites and then they get bummed out with some of the numbers and then they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't think I'd be able to rank for that," or right?
Yeah.
So something that I am have been thinking about and would love your idea is, when it comes to those keywords, like look at them, consider them, but also, and if you have a podcast, you can have a normal interview with somebody, including those topics, maybe
Hmm.
sprinkling in some of those words. And then you can have on your website a blog post that kind of breaks down that episode from that podcast and either just a summary with the keywords, or maybe you want to elaborate and storytell and write a little bit longer of a blog. And then somewhere on that page, you can embed like the player for the podcast
Yes.
so that they can go listen to it, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about what if you were doing that, somebody was asking you to do that for them, like what would you do to kind of like get the most out of Uncle Google for it?
Yeah. So I will tell you, podcasts are tricky
Right.
because unless you're writing a post that's like my top 10 business podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
right? The search query is usually a very granular piece of information. So, like, what is SEO,
Right.
right? So, that person probably just wants the answer. They don't necessarily want to hear a whole hour long podcast. Like, that's kind
True.
of the follow up. So, it's very tricky. However, I think podcasters need to remember that their medium is inherently a nurture medium. This
Mm.
is the way you keep people connected. They get to know you, they can hear your voice week after week. It's a very passive experience, and it's very hard to get them to move.
Mm.
And so, as a listener, you want to make sure that you're giving them something really enticing to get them to come to your website so that then you have their email address so you can send them the newest, latest from the podcast and send them to the link on your website because
Mm-hmm.
Google watches behavior. Right?
Okay.
Google knows if people are coming back to your site. And if you're somebody who facilitates numerous return visitors, then Google goes, oh, this person's somehow connected to the person who owns the website, and there is some mechanism working, and they keep coming back for more.
Mm.
And so, even if it is to say, come back over, I've got all the links to, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and, wherever else you get your podcasts, it's all linked up there. You'll also get the show notes, that what have you. So, that's one way to think about your podcast and optimizing a blog. I think the other thing that a lot of podcasters don't do is put the guest name in the URL so that Rita, if you put my name in the URL and then someone searches Lauren Gaggioli, they may come over, watch your video, listen
Mm-hmm.
to your podcast. You might get someone off of that because that person's looking for me. If they're looking for me by name, they may already know about SEO and they have the high level, but they want to hear this interview in particular. And
Right.
that's where you might get a new listener. So I think doing really creative listicles where you elevate other podcasters and really speak to queries around podcasting, because if
Mm.
someone's looking for something new to listen to, that's where you're going to get yourself elevated and get more subscribers. And then really making sure you feature the guest prominently and drive your email list back to that singular post so that you don't have an email with a ton of links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. It's
Mm.
all housed on that blog post, and then that blog post is where people come and they can flow through to other pages.
That's so interesting. Do you have any knowledge on some, because now video podcasting is a thing, like some tips
Yeah,
for SEO on a YouTube video? Because I don't know this, but pretty sure YouTube is owned by Google and they
it
might
is.
have some searchability opportunities there, right?
Yeah. So I will tell you, I am not a YouTube SEO person. So I
Okay.
don't do keyword research for YouTube because I leverage YouTube as a host
Okay.
rather than I'm not having a YouTube channel,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that's like a whole different
A
algorithm
whole
hack.
other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is owned by Google. It
Hmm.
is a search engine. And
Right.
so I optimize for the queries that are searched in Google because Google is more likely to elevate its own properties.
Okay.
And so things like your title, I would have it mirror what you're going to name your podcast.
Hmm.
And I would embed that video in the page. I
Right.
would also, and again, this is not for the algorithm, but if you put the link to the page and get people out of YouTube and into your ecosystem, your website, post like the full post is listed here and
Mm.
put the link to your website. I do that because I don't care if I'm not getting as much reach if I have control over where people are flowing to.
Right. The reason
So,
why I ask is you hit on what I was kind of looking to learn is the title aspect.
mhm,
Some people have told me like, oh, maybe the title of a podcast doesn't really matter, or it may or may not be searchable. Well, if it's on YouTube, there is some, I think, validity to considering maybe at one or two keywords that you'd be using just to get some of that awareness or exposure to the content. What do you think?
I like that if you like thinking about the human first and
Right.
then weaving keywords in, right?
Right, like, we're
So
not making it look like an Amazon or Wish post or
right,
Temu where
right,
they're
yeah.
like, "Podcast for people who podcast that are
Yeah,
business owners, that podcast that are entrepreneurs, that are whatever," which is a
and you will
really
rank.
right, which is a great
Yeah,
segue, though, because that is what some people think SEO is.
yeah,
So, the second part of this conversation is, okay, we we figured out some of our keywords, we know who our target audience is, we've kinda planned out where we're posting. We have a website. Please have a website. Oh my gosh, please
yes,
have a
please have a
website.
website.
And then in addition to that, we're like, okay, so now how do I take all that information and actually story tell and not word vomit keywords?
Yes, yes. So this is a little bit of an art and a science, right? You
Mm,
kind of need both. You need to understand what feeds the bots because if you don't, people won't end up on your site to read the beautiful things that you are posting. I will also say not every post needs to be SEO optimized. Like I have one um that I wrote at like 3 in the morning
yeah.
and I couldn't sleep. And I wrote kind of this like stream of consciousness, like this is what's on my mind post. That's called I have an itchy brain and there's no cream for that. Like this is not getting picked up for any keyword I want to get picked up for. Like let's just put it that way.
We're not looking for cream, okay?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay,
But like
so
wouldn't it be nice?
tell me
So
how you balance that then. Yeah, like why how do you not get stuck and create for yourself but also create for the algorithm too?
you choose. Right? Like you make a choice and you know when you are deviating and you know when you are playing in, with the rules. So, there's certain things if anybody wants to see like a robust list, but if you search on page SEO best practices, on page SEO best practices is like are you do you have one H1 on your page? That's your header, one, it's your title. I talk about imperfect action all the time because with my original website, the one that got 16,000 new users every month for like 2 whole years, when I created zero content, by the way, it started. Google trusted me. He kept it going while I like nursed a baby on the couch. Um, I used to think that the headers were just like, which font do I want? Which color do I want? So like when I tell you just like pick some things to start doing, I mean it. Like just get started. 96.5% of web pages on the internet get zero traffic from Google. You can do better. Like
You can do
you
what
can do
percent?
it. You can jump. You can jump. Just do three things, right? Make sure you have one H1 on your page. Make sure you have a call to action at the bottom of every page so that people have the opportunity to stay connected to you. So many people like trick out their home pages and then don't realize that if people are coming to your site through search, and that's what we want because we are not Tony Robbins. We are not Walt Disney. Like people are not searching our names. They are searching for what we do, not who we are. They are going to start coming in through those granular blog posts. It's like they're crawling in through the windows. And if your blog page is not as welcoming and robust as your homepage, you are losing people. So make sure you have a way to stay connected. And make sure you're doing things like leveraging the headers hierarchically. And what I mean by that is, H2s through H5s to break up the wall of text, put images in there, bullet points, make lists, bold things, make it very readable and human friendly. So, the other thing I will say that I think if there were two things I could tell every entrepreneur that they needed to do on their website. The first would be to internally link the heck out of their site. And what that means is that I recently did a blog post about what is a good keyword search volume to target. And so I wrote this whole blog post. I did a video that I leveraged the YouTube thing. I have closed captions on the video. I leveraged the keywords in my speech to make sure that they're in there. Good title, good description. I embedded it in. I'm sure I did a million things wrong from like YouTube standpoint, but it's fine.
But you did it, which is
I
better
did
than
it.
not
It's out
doing it.
there. And then in that post, I referenced the fact that I am an SEO consultant for small businesses. And I highlighted that term and put a link to my SEO services for small businesses sales page on my site. So you want to internally link on your site with something more than just click here, right? Like it needs to have the relevant keyword highlighted and pointing to the page that you want to rank for that other keyword. This sort of flows through your site. And then when Google crawls it, which is the next thing, when Google crawls it, he's going to say, okay, I see this page and I see that it's for good keyword search volume. And also, oh, look at this link. Where does that go? Oh, look, she also does that. Gives him more information. I call him Uncle Google, which is why I always refer to him as a he. But
I like it. I dig it.
thank you. And then the second thing, get into Google Search Console. It takes like 2 seconds to set up. And if you can work on a website, if you can create your own website, if you create posts on your website, if you produce a podcast, you can absolutely set this up. It takes 2 seconds. You can't mess it up too badly. Every time you publish new content, go into Google Search Console and submit the URL and request indexing. It is like a 2-second thing. And it is the way you say, hey, Google, got something new for you. Come on over when you got a chance. Most people don't do this. And if Google does not know your site exists, your site basically doesn't exist. So get into the Google ecosystem, make this part of your workflow to raise your hand and say, I just did something new. Come over and check it out. He might index it, he might not. You'll get better as you go. You'll get some wins and some losses. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't exist in Google, it doesn't exist. So make sure that you are raising your hand and making friends with Google. He is your friend. You cannot mess this up too badly. If there are errors, you can fix them. If there's a problem, you can fix it. If there is something you don't want to do SEO related, fine, don't do it. You can take imperfect action, but if you start doing enough of the little things, it starts to add up.
This is why I think it's so important for a podcast. Let's say you really want to promote your podcast. I think it is important to have a website for your podcast.
Yes. Oh my gosh, please.
I think there's so many
Please.
people that really don't. They just think that because I have the YouTube page and I have the Apple platform that people are going to find it. But truly, what you're saying is very relevant in that being a very foundational element, right?
I So I have a real problem with social. Like I'm on social. I'm not on social for business. And it is fun. And I think there are a lot of great people who are leveraging it well, but that is rented sand. And right now we're seeing Meta shut all the things down with zero explanation. Just poof,
TikTok's
gone.
going, maybe not, who knows,
Yeah.
right?
Like ha- I I don't have time to waste. I want to have I might share something on social just cuz it's like 2 seconds and okay, that's fine, but I am not building a social presence. I am building a business. And a social presence might be part of that. But if you don't have ownership of what you're building, if you don't control the land, you at some point could lose it all. And I think my biggest concern are people who are getting mortgages based on their social influencer status, where you're like, tomorrow the entire revenue stream could be gone. Like
Right. Or
that,
somebody could
this is a
hack it.
real problem.
I've seen pages hacked or YouTube
Yeah.
channels hacked, and then
Yeah.
there's nowhere for anybody to go to.
Yeah. So I think there's if you're just a hobbyist and you're like, this is a lark, it's totally fun. It's frivolous and I'll probably quit soon. If
Right,
that's what
right.
you're starting, fine. Yeah, then don't do all the bells and whistles. If you are building a business and you are building for keeps, then just like you would have to rent a storefront on Main Street, you need to own a website where you pay for your hosting and you have a theme that is not janky and you come correct because that is your plate glass window on Main Street.
And it's so important because, as a podcaster too, let's say, God forbid, you post on Spotify and then Spotify decides that they're not a company anymore, right? And then
Yeah.
everyone that's ever followed you, it's like you never existed, right?
Yeah.
So having that presence and that website is so important too. I think something else that is another opportunity that personally encountered with my not so great podcast website, but still something that I encountered, is that
Yeah.
PR companies can reach out to you through that contact submission form, because it's a more formal way of doing that. And you'll get guests that you never thought you would on your show. And it makes you seem more valid than just the hobbyist podcast. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean 100%. Like it gives you a credibility and allows you to level up in a way that if you're playing for keeps, then you need to be, investing some time there. I hear all the time people don't want to invest with like, I don't want to learn WordPress. I'll go to Squarespace, or I don't want to learn WordPress. I'm going to do Wix. I'm like, okay. And I have shown them like, here's my client on Wix. Here's their speed report that Google has access to, by the way.
Interesting.
Here's Squarespace. And here's my WordPress site that I can do something about, right? Like if my speed starts to tank, I can go to my theme because I pay them annually, because that is a business model I am willing to participate in. I will pay you annually to keep the lights on and give me somebody to contact when I have trouble. I can download a caching plugin and optimize it and get it going. I can, my web pages aren't loading in WebP. Great. I can go ahead and download a plugin for that as well and optimize every page on my site with the click of a button and have it at a 97, where I think Wix is coming in at like a 45 speed, and Squarespace was something like 23. I don't control the hosting there. I don't control anything really. It's whatever server they shoved me into, and as fast as it's running and loading and the code they gave me, that's what I have to deal with.
There's even
And
WordPress plugins for podcasts so that you can have it
yes,
auto upload your podcast to the site too, right?
absolutely. There's so many automations that can go through different plugins and whatnot. So there's different tools. You have different control. More control means a steeper learning curve. Are we playing for keeps? Like I have so many people who started on Squarespace and do e-commerce. So actually, my friend Scott Connors is in Orlando. He does magical vacation services. He does grocery delivery to Disney resorts.
That's smart. That's a
It's
great business.
amazing. Oh
Holy
my gosh.
moly.
Oh my gosh, Rita, he does these cute little like Disney surprise boxes. So we did keyword research and I found that surprise boxes, like people want to say like, surprise, you're going to Disney World.
Right.
So we created a whole product line off of it, and it's on his site that was in Squarespace, and he's getting feed to death because he started to get the traffic and now he's like, and now I need a redesign. So
Yeah,
now
it
or
is
later,
important to bring up though,
totally fine.
because I guess I'm guilty of thinking like, well, you can just put the website up on Squarespace or Wix or whatever. But I always wonder, how much is it actually damaging the capability of this, of what Google can scan and find, like, you know what I mean, on your website.
They're okay. Like I will say for Scott, so he was stuck at like 200. He did a case study with me, so this is all public. He's fully aware that I share his case study and consenting. But he was getting like 200 hits a month for like 2 years. And I came in and started working with him, and we did keyword research. He started developing some content, a few new product lines, and he went to like 5,000 searches a month real quick. And that's on that Squarespace site, right? And so you go, okay, but Squarespace, because of the structure of the fees, he started getting feed to death. And so now he's like, okay, this is the tipping point where like I've got the revenue and now I can do the custom redesign. He's so sweet. Every time we talk, he's like, I'm so excited about the new site because I'm doing a local yarn store here right now. They're in Squarespace. We're in that same place, right? He's not generating the revenue yet from the online business. I told him, I was like, I just need you to brace yourself. This will last us. This is like Band-Aid and like duct tape. This is probably a 1 year, 2 year fix, but at some point we're going to have to redesign. And he was like, okay. But like, we're
Right.
going to let the revenue rise first. Are you starting with a full-time gig and you're doing a side hustle and you can cash flow some of it and just do it right from the get-go? That would be awesome. It's not in everybody's wheelhouse. So like get started, take imperfect action, learn what you need to learn to be like dangerous enough. You're not going to mess it up if you only do half. Like permission to just do what fits your workflow right now, but know that once you watch it and you see it start to climb, there's a place where you have to make the decision to level up or you are going to sit on your growth. And so that's where you go like, okay, do I need more information? Do I need a redesign? Do I need help? Like a VA who can do all the steps I know I'm not doing? Like,
Right.
great.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I think because people have asked me before, Rita, like, how do I get more people to find my podcast? How do I get more people to find my
Mhm.
podcast? I think really what the question should be is, how do you get more people to find you? And if you don't have a website at all, then it's just gonna be an uphill battle, right?
Yeah. If you send me an Instagram handle when I ask where your business lives, I probably won't be calling you. Like
Right,
you
right.
can include that as well, but like, mm,
Yeah, there's more to that there. So if
yeah.
so I love the message that you're saying though is at least try, like, at least go down the path, and
Yes.
if you mess up, the whole thing about this keyword SEO in general, it is always going to be testing, whether you know the keywords or not. You're gonna have to
Sure.
test things, you're gonna have to play around and make mistakes. But what if somebody says, "I have AI, though. ChatGPT is gonna tell me what keywords." I knew you were gonna react that way.
I leave the conversation
No,
immediately.
but let's
Yes,
educate. Let's
no, yeah.
educate as to why I can't just hop on ChatGPT and have it tell me what the keywords are for my content.
So I'm having like a major existential crisis around AI, and not from a SEO standpoint, because there's like all this chat about chat SEO like going away. Like it's just not going to be a thing. And I'm like, "Oh god, like that's fine. Like I'll figure it out. I just did a major pivot in my business. I will land on my feet from a business standpoint." But from a mom of young children, uh fiction writer, someone who like loves human creativity, like I'm going through it. So know that that's the lens through which I come at this. Like my energy on this is not solely SEO. Like it is informed by a lot more. However, um as AI is reductive. Like at the end, like that's the essence of the problem. AI is reductive. You ask AI a question and somebody else asks the same question, like the answers are going to be pretty much the same. Like, why are we here? Like, why are we doing this? Is it to share what, just regurgitate? Like, no, it's to express ourselves. And so AI might be able to do keyword research that gives you, I don't know where they're pulling their data set from. So if they tell you like a keyword and a keyword difficulty and a volume, like I don't know whether to, or not to tell you that that's true, because I have no visibility to where it's coming from. That said, let's say you see a keyword and you're like, okay, I'm going to use that one. Great. How many other people have been dished up that exact same keyword? And perhaps I'm just old school. It's like cart and buggy SEO. But I have this feeling when I'm doing keyword research manually, my brain is making connections, especially when I'm doing it for clients. Like I can see it. You remember those 3D pictures where you'd like cross your eyes and they'd like pop
Yes.
out? Yeah,
Yes.
it's like that. Like suddenly I can see the matrix. I'm like, oh, this is what we should, these are the chain of keywords that we should like hook together to be related on this sales page. And then over here's where we'll do the content, and the hierarchy will look like this. Like it just like all comes out for me when I'm doing it manually. I don't think a shortcut serves me, because if I can't make the connections that way, then there's something about the focus that the manual process requires that gives me more insight as an SEO. If you would like to cut a corner and just garner keywords, I think that's okay. That said, Google just released another helpful content update, which they did one in the last fall. It just absolutely obliterated some people. I was completely unscathed. But this one that just happened, I got dinged. And that is just a function of the machines are learning websites again. and they have to like start from basically scratch with their new set of algorithm guidance, and nobody knows what that is. But the arc of Google's content updates or algorithm updates, the fundamental difference between Google and social is Google is always going to elevate quality content. They're never going to say, "Oh, look, our competitors focusing on video. Maybe we should focus on video." Anybody else get hit by Instagram's reel update? Yeah. Like, your workflow is not necessarily going to change with a Google algorithm update. I have no doubt my traffic's going to come back. I have time to wait. I am creating quality human created content.
Long-term content, more evergreen too.
Evergreen content. Yeah, unless you have a news site. That would be different,
Right.
but don't do a news site because that sounds exhausting, especially if you're a solopreneur. Oh my god. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. So make sure that when you are creating the content, I think the use for AI, the two that I've heard that makes good sense to me but still requires human touch. Folks with learning difficulties or executive function issues, they can get the format for their post and then kind of plug in their own thoughts. Like, it can help them organize hierarchically in a way that maybe their brain can't process. I love that use of it. And the other way that my SEO copywriter does, so I do the content strategy, she actually creates the content for our clients. She goes into, I think she was using Panda. That was a while back. I don't know what she's using now, but she will go in and see, based on her research and based on what AI kicks out, where's the gap? Like, what are people not talking about? And then she'll put that in. So it helps her see sort of what's missing in as a part of the conversation, and then she writes it as a human. So there's ways to use it, but the thing is, those ways are boundaried. Those ways are not just churning and burning content. Like, at the end of the day, what are we doing and why are we doing it? If you have too much on your plate, take something off. If you can't do the job well, don't do it. Like, figure out a way to use this tool as an assistant. But if you insist on just, using it to like plug and chug, I just, that's not going to get you anything. If anything, it's a lot of wasted time. Seems like you're saving time, but it's actually wasted time. And any sort of gain you make is going to be short term.
Well, at the end of the day, we want people to have this is a full circle moment. Why is Disney so impactful?
Mm,
Why are the stories so great? They're memorable. They didn't churn and burn a story. I mean, at least
yeah.
for the 90s, like the kid in me,
Yeah.
there's
Oh,
references in there from all of those movies that I will literally never forget. Wouldn't
yeah.
you rather create a blog post, a podcast episode, whatever it is, that somebody will never forget and feel impacted by it than read an AI script, post an AI post, and then do the AI research? Like, at the end of the day, maybe you'll get a couple hits, but will they actually ever come back? We want to create repeat
Yes.
super fans. And for Disney, that's what Disney does. And for you, that's what you do, how you help with your clients and their SEO strategy. And um, I could talk to you about this for way longer because gosh,
I
I need
know.
to learn some of this, guys. Like, don't feel guilty if you haven't done some of it because there's a lot that I haven't done for myself. Okay.
You're
So
on the journey.
we're on the journey. We're still in the beginning of the saga. We're like in chapter one.
This is
But
Act 1.
right, it's act one. Okay. But
We'll send you
Lauren,
to Hoth next.
I appreciate that. If it's funny. If anyone wants to connect with you to better understand not just their SEO, but how they can create that more human-based content, like the cohesive organic content strategy that best fits their brand, their
Yeah.
business, and their long-term goals, how can they reach out to you?
So there's a couple of different ways. Everything, I will say, lives at laurengaggioli.com. So I'm going to give you some special URLs, but that is where everything lives. If you want to have a chat about it, I have a mastermind offering. It's a group coaching call. You can get it for $25. And so if you want to come on, it's at most 4 entrepreneurs for an hour, but I will tell you it is not filling up. So if you come over to laurengaggioli.com/mastermind, you can sign up for a $25 group coaching call and we can sit. And if nobody else signs up, you get the full hour and we can talk about your business. That said, if you're like, okay, I don't need to chit chat. I need to just get the whole shooting match. Like, tell me how to close the circle on this. I have a course called the Organic Marketing Ecosystem, and you can dive in there. As a part of that, you do get 2 months in my accountability group. So we do have time together as a part of that. So if you're like, I just need to dive in, that's a great place to go. So 2 great offerings, and that's the best way for us to connect and work together.
That's amazing, Lauren. Thank you so much for being on today. If you had to give somebody listening who's going through their content journey, business journey, they're just trying to grow the brands that they're working on, any advice in true Disney fashion? What's the moral of the day? The inspiration, little hype that we can give to that person listening?
Take the long road. Build it right. You will regret every shortcut. And I don't mean shortcuts like automation and systems. Like, those are not shortcuts. That's foundational. If you start to, take the easy road, it's going to show in your work and there's going to be a trickle down effect. So make sure you are thinking about why you're doing it. Be really, really tapped into that and who you're serving, and really do right by those people who you get to help, and whistle while you work.
And whistle while you work. You heard it here, you guys.
Yeah.
Just whistle while you work, okay?
You were ready for that. Oh my gosh.
Ready.
That's amazing.
I just threw up Snow White on the screen for anyone who listened and didn't hear it. Anyways, thank you
That
so
was
much,
like
Lauren.
the coolest flex ever.
I do be doing the Disney media stuff. It's fine. Let's throw one up just for good measure here, because we got. But all right, we'll stop messing around. Thanks for hanging out with me today, Lauren. I hope all of you who are listening have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Bippity Boppity Business. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review in Apple, or listen to us anywhere you prefer listening to your podcast. Until next time, have a magical day.